How can we find clarity of self and purpose in spite of existential uncertainty? That's the general main question my work centers on, or at least this, my content creation. And it tries to answer this question or desires as such as like, would you like to have better clarity about who you are and what you're meant to do? Or maybe if you don't like the framing of being meant to do something, what would be the most fulfilling path for you? Are you interested in having a sense of identity and purpose that you can rely on? And the reason why you might want that is because if you don't, you might struggle with different problems, such as maybe you had an initial idea for what you wanted to do with life, and then you tried it out, but it didn't really work out that well. It wasn't fulfilling. There were problems, or you weren't that motivated after a while, and so it caused disenchantment. And you weren't really satisfied with the situation, so trying to find something that's a better match. But then you might struggle with confusion because there's like a lot of different options, and you're not exactly sure how to, filter them. Which option is best? Which makes the most sense? That's another issue if you're lacking that clarity, and it can lead you to kind of try and guess which might be the best while lacking some information, and then being kind of played with second guessing. Did I really do the best choice? How do I know if this is the best idea? And all of this can be pretty panic inducing and cause despair over time if you kind of try a few different solutions and not work. And you might start being afraid that, oh, is there any path that will ever work? So those are a lot of reasons why this line of questioning can be pretty important and pretty vital to at least some people. And the perk of having this clarity of identity and purpose is that you can feel driven, and that you've got a strong sense of purpose and then motivation that helps you actually work towards it. And then you also feel grounded, as in you kind of know what you're supposed to do, and why. There's kind of some backing, and so it makes sense to you, and you can kind of trust it. So as I said, this line of investigation, or this general topic, is my main interest and kind of the center or the core of what I like to talk about. And I mostly center on the discovery aspect, right? So kind of finding this clarity. Although I also focus a little bit on implementation, but mostly mindsets and framing rather than in-depth doing stuff. But in any case, let's start to give an answer. It'll have to be short-ish because it's a very broad topic. But I'll kind of give the beginning steps or information you need to know in order to keep moving on. So I think the first thing that is important to consider, kind of a mindset shift, you could say, perhaps, is that this process of finding clarity, well, I kind of give it away by saying that, but it's a process. You kind of have to go through a seeking phase. I think at least when I went through this whole journey myself at the beginning, I was kind of hoping that I could just find, the answer right away, kind of flip an on-off switch of clarity, or rather an off-on switch, and just, get an answer. But the truth is, in order to have a good answer that will be satisfying and sustainable over time, that's like really a good match, you need to back it off with a lot of information and reflection. And so, it's kind of a gradual and iterative process. Another aspect is that, and a reason why you have to go through this journey, is that I think that authenticity is a pretty central aspect of this journey, because purpose and meaning are personal and they kind of differ from one individual to another. At least that's a strong belief I have. And so you kind of need to figure out what makes sense to you. And so someone else can't really, just give you a ready-made answer. And that's why it takes time, to explore. And that's also a reason why, I care a lot about agency and the ability of people to do what's most fulfilling for them. So that's one of the reasons I also, in some of my content, poke holes in what I find to be arbitrary mindsets or dictates or way of doing things that restrict people's agency for no good reason. And so I try to offer some alternatives instead. So, for example, some of the content I've already prepared offers alternatives to some, improvable mindsets, we'll say, around productivity and discipline. But so back to our main topic. So, there's the seeking phase. The answer is authentic. It's personal to us. So how do we figure it out? I think it goes through a journey of self-inquiry, right? Kind of getting to know and understand yourself better. And the main way I focus for doing this personally is structured introspection. It's not the only way you can get better clarity. There's kind of trial and error. So for instance, if you've tried a pass and it wasn't a good match, well, then you have a little bit more clarity than you had before, because at least you have a clear no. You don't know what the best yes is, but you have a no. And there are other ways to gain clarity, right? Through action. So for example, sometimes when you write down something, you start understanding what your thoughts actually are. So there are different ways of getting better clarity, but the one I focus most on is structured introspection. And so to give a little bit more context and something a little bit more practical, I'll kind of give you the most general, simple framework for how structured introspection works, according to me. So I use a acronym, which is just kind of a simple technique. I've come up with the acronym, but like this general process has existed for a long time. Basically, I just kind of noticed what were the common elements in all the introspective techniques I've used across time, and that have kind of helped me figure out information. And so they kind of all go through 4 phases, or at least most of them do. And so my goal was just to kind of tie them together in a simple and memorable way, so that you can kind of keep it in a corner of your head, and use it when you need it, and make sure you're just kind of covering each base. So the acronym is SEEK, like seeking. As we said, it's a seeking journey. So SEEK, SEEK. The first phase of introspection is SPOT, for S, right? Or sensing. Basically, it's about noticing. So it could be a strong reaction. So strong feelings of affinity or aversion are good things to focus on. If you really resonate strongly with something, that's a good indication that you care about it, and so it probably ties back into what you'll want to do, who you are, and purpose. Aversion works the same way, but in the opposite direction. But it could also be a recurrent pattern in your life, so in your behavior or things that happen to you, and it could also be prompts. So that's the first step, is just to notice, to spot that there's something worthy of inquiring into. The second step is externalize. So for the first E, you could also use expel or express if you like it better. And the general idea is just you want to externalize everything that comes to mind. So it can be like a form of brain dump. You could write it down, like a form of journaling. You could record an audio log. You could talk about it with someone. But just kind of, things are more muddled when they're just inside your head. And you kind of miss, important segments if you just keep everything kind of swirling in an elusive state in there. So it really helps to just, lay it out one way or another, whichever way works best to you. Then the third step is examine. You could also use explore or inquire with the British spelling. And so basically, in this step, you kind of use the material, the content that you've externalized, and you kind of dig deeper into it. You kind of ask why. You kind of try to get a little bit more information, or kind of understand the deeper causes, the root behind what came out naturally. And through this phase, you kind of start getting more information, like more tidbits. And then the last step, which is a little, which kind of happens on another level to an extent, is knit or knead. But basically, the idea is, right, through the 3 first steps, you kind of glean some insights. And then in this last phase, you kind of bring them together, right? It's kind of interconnecting all the bits and pieces of information you've gathered, organizing them, and kind of creating an overarching tapestry, making sense of it all, right? And so if you notice different types of situations where you have a strong resonance feeling, then through externalizing and examining, you can start noticing some themes of what you really care about. And through this knitting process, you can start extracting your values and such things. So that's kind of the general process. It's not super concrete like that. That's kind of the beginning. Like this is just like a broad overview, and I'll go into the details and other content pieces and other in the future. But this idea is just to kind of lay down the basics. And I think a lot of techniques, so some techniques of introspection that you can think of, like nonviolent communication or appreciative inquiry. Those are the two that come to mind right now. But they kind of follow within those general first steps. So if you'd like to know more, I'm working on a free 1-hour workshop, or it's kind of a webinar where I kind of cover this technique in a little bit more depth. I also talk about kind of more theory, more details about the journey and things to pay attention to. And also we go through a couple of practical exercises on how to actually apply this technique to start getting some answers for your specific situation. So I did a first version, and based on the feedback, I want to improve it quite a bit. And I'm pretty busy right now, so I'm not exactly sure when I'll start touring it. Right now, the moment of recording, it's January 2025. So probably I should be done by the end of the year, or start, be able to present it. Probably before that, but I'm not exactly sure on the timeline yet. If you're interested, you can kind of sign up to my social or my kind of content creation accounts or my newsletter. You can find more information in the description. And I also want to start working with people and directly helping them with this type of journey, and basically helping people with the introspective process. So it can be easier for other people than ourselves to kind of spot these themes, or to help us find more clarity. For some reason, other people's problems or situations always seem easier to solve to an extent, because I guess we're less, attached to it, and we have less things or detail clouding our mind. So I can help for each steps, with the spotting. I can give you some prompts or some things to pay attention to. For the externalizing, talking with people helps, right? And if you think about this, so I'm not a therapist, right? But if you work with a therapist, it kind of goes through the same type of process where you'll notice a specific thing you want to talk about, externalize it by basically talking with them, and then they'll ask you a couple of questions that will help you examine, go deeper. What does this mean, or why is this happening, or what can I do about it? And then the knitting, you're usually, at least in most process, I know you're not super helped. You kind of have to do that on your own for the most part. But anyways, I can help, and I'd be happy to help on each phase. So I can help with kind of helping you find some clarity and doing some of the examination work as you're talking. And then also help you with some techniques and tools to knit all the information together. So if you're interested, since I'm only starting, I'll be doing free sessions. I haven't started right now yet, but it should be happening pretty soon. So if you're interested, you can get in touch with me. At least that's true for at the time of recording. And so yeah, free sessions in exchange for feedback and some surveys, as in kind of learning a little bit more about the type of people that would be interested in this. Anyways, I hope this was somewhat useful. You got a bit of an overview of the type of subjects I'll talk about. So I wish you the best on your own journey to find better clarity. And I thank you for listening to me.